Over $4 billion going to illegal immigrants in the form of stimulus checks. As the Biden administration continues to downplay the border situation, a mayor in Arizona is declaring a state of emergency. Democrats say their next big move will target infrastructure. Their bill also lumps together family and education programs. But critics question where the money will come from. And Trump reveals what was in that note he left Biden in the White House. It's become a tradition in recent years for outgoing presidents to leave a note for their successors. Tune in to Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. Americans are starting to receive the latest round of stimulus checks. But that's not everyone who's getting the money. A new analysis reveals that over $4 billion will also go to illegal immigrants. The Center for Immigration Studies estimates that 2.65 million illegal immigrants have Social Security numbers. This is what allows them to receive stimulus checks. It includes people under DACA and temporary projected status recipients. Director of Research for the Center for Immigration Studies, Stephen Camerata, says these individuals are in the country illegally and could be required to leave. Yet, under the current system, they are still given work authorization and Social Security numbers. But not included in that number is the nearly 2 million immigrants that are thought to use Social Security numbers that don't match their names. And nearly 600,000 who have Social Security numbers from when they were legally in the country but overstayed their visa. Camerata says that so many illegal immigrants are issued a Social Security number is a clear indication that America is not serious about enforcing its immigration laws. He called it a disturbing fact, adding, quote, "There is simply no question that millions of illegal immigrants will receive billions of dollars in COVID relief checks." A mayor in Arizona is declaring a state of emergency over the border crisis. The town near Arizona's border with Mexico, Gila Bend, has a population of only 2,000 people. Mayor Cruz told Fox News his town doesn't have the necessary means to deal with a migrant influx in the middle of a pandemic. He told Fox News Border Patrol let us know that they were going to be dropping migrants that have been detained for 72 hours in our town, which we really didn't understand because we have nothing here. He says he is placing the blame on the Biden administration for transporting illegal immigrants on buses to his town. He went on to note they don't have the resources needed. He explained that they have not received any federal or state assistance and that the illegal immigrants being dropped off in his town can't get food, lodging, or COVID testing. He noted crime has gone up in his town with about 20 illegal crossers coming into the town on foot almost daily. Riggs told the outlet the cost for COVID-19 testing of 2 busloads of people a week would cost around $600,000 over a year. Arizona and Montana took legal action to block new Biden administration immigration regulations earlier this month. The states say they are concerned about these changes. The new rules would limit the capability of ICE to detain some illegal immigrants unless they pose a threat to national security, entered through the border after November 1st, or committed aggravated felonies. The Biden administration says that the rules don't impair arresting or deporting people, but the officers in the field would need to request permission from their superiors to arrest people outside of the aforementioned cases. Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich said in a statement at the time, blindly releasing thousands of people, including convicted criminals and those who may be spreading COVID-19 into our state, is both unconscionable and a violation of federal law. This must be stopped now to avoid a dangerous humanitarian crisis for the immigrants and the people of Arizona. Montana Attorney General Austin Knudsen joined the lawsuit, saying meth trafficked into Montana by Mexican drug cartels has wrecked our state. The problem will only be made worse if the Biden administration continues to allow criminals to stay in the country. Adding enforcing our immigration laws and helping to keep Americans safe is one of the federal government's most important functions. The Biden administration is failing its basic responsibility to Americans. Both filed to block the regulations from going into effect. Now, as to the situation at the border, legacy news outlets and reporters are increasingly sounding the alarm over the White House's transparency regarding the southern border. The Biden administration has banned reporters from visiting facilities that are used to house illegal immigrants, citing the pandemic. CNN had an article titled "Reporters Call Out Biden Administration for Lack of Transparency at the U.S.-Mexico Border," noting that the recent trip by Homeland Security head Alejandro Mayorkas to the border would usually include media access, but this time they were denied. Radio Television Digital News Association wrote a letter to the White House last week calling for media access. The letter stated, "At a time when the southern border of the United States is undergoing a historic surge of migrants, it is more important than ever that journalists be allowed the necessary access to report accurately and independently on the Border Patrol's response to the increased arrival of migrants and the well-being of those housed in Border Patrol facilities." And Republican Senator Ted Cruz is calling on President Biden to allow free and fair reporting at the border. He says it equates to hiding the truth from the American people. He tweeted, "That's why I am calling on Biden to commit to allowing free and fair reporting on the crisis at the border." Cruz plans to visit the border Friday with a group of senators. He writes, "It is not enough for members of the Senate to see what's happening. The American people must see. That is why I requested that members of the media be allowed to join us. But your administration clearly and emphatically refused to offer press access. This is outrageous and hypocritical." We reached out to the White House for comment, but haven't heard back yet. And now let's turn to legislation in the works. Democrat lawmakers say they have big plans for the country. Reports say the next step includes another colossal spending bill, this time on infrastructure, universal preschool, free community college, and paid family leave. News outlets say the price tag will exceed $3 trillion. Biden first touched on a $2 trillion infrastructure bill while campaigning. The starting point for infrastructure costs stands at $320 billion from a transportation bill previously passed in the House. The White House has not released the details or the cost. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell calls the bill a Trojan horse. He says, quote, "We are hearing the next few months might bring a so-called infrastructure proposal that may actually be a Trojan horse for massive tax hikes and other job-killing left-wing policies." McConnell predicts Democrats will say the bill is for highways, but it will really be related to the Green New Deal and other liberal policies. He says the House Democrats tipped their hand last year. They published a proposal that was a sprawling proposal that pretended to be a highway bill, but it was really just a multi-thousand-page cousin of the Green New Deal. McConnell says there is already a proven way to boost the economy and create jobs. He says that is exactly what happened before the virus hit. He says big government and liberal fads won't work. He made a reference to Biden's cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline, saying the Biden administration is pushing policies that, quote, "do not serve the long-term interests of a majority of workers." And as to the shutdown, McConnell says both working Americans and domestic energy took a back seat to left-wing signaling. Democrats say they want a bipartisan bill, but some say they should pass the bill without Republicans. They could use the budget process to get around the filibuster. That is how Democrats passed the COVID-19 relief bill without Republican votes. Senator Bernie Sanders says it is very hard to get Republican support. He says Democrats should pass the bill without Republicans again if they need to. Some Democrats say they won't do that with this bill. With an evenly split Senate, every Democrat would have to agree to cut Republicans out. Democrat lawmakers are finalizing a proposal with the White House. They expect to announce it in the coming weeks. Democrats have said an infrastructure package would include around $1 trillion for roads, bridges, rail lines, electrical vehicle charging stations, and cell network, to name a few items. The goal being a move towards cleaner energy. A second component would propose benefits for workers, including free community college, universal pre-kindergarten, and paid family leave. No part of the proposal has been finalized, and details about spending are still up in the air. As to how to pay for all this, Democrats suggested a wealth tax hike as a potential funding mechanism. McConnell signaled last week that Republicans won't back tax hikes to pay for it. And in other news, Trump reveals what was in that note he left Biden in the White House. There was much speculation at the time about the contents of the letter. While Trump broke tradition by not attending Biden's inauguration, he did follow tradition and leave Biden a letter. White House Press Secretary at the time, Judd Deere, confirmed to news outlets that Trump left a note for Biden but did not disclose the contents, citing privacy concerns. It seems those curiosities can be laid to rest. Trump told Lisa Booth on her podcast on Monday, quote, "Basically, I wished him luck, and it was a couple of pages long, and it was from the heart because I want to see him do well." Adding, "I want him to do well, but that does not include closing up the Keystone Pipeline, which, by the way, environmentally is much better than having crude oil on trains. But Biden's friend and supporter Warren Buffett has trains. Nobody ever talks about that." When Biden was asked about the contents of the letter, he said it was, quote, "very generous." In recent years, it has become a tradition for outgoing presidents to leave a letter to their successors. Former President Ronald Reagan started the tradition by leaving a note for Vice President George H.W. Bush. When Trump entered office, he had a note from Barack Obama. The note read in part, quote, "This is a unique office without a clear blueprint for success, so I don't know that any advice from me will be particularly helpful. American leadership in this world really is indispensable. It is up to us, through action and example, to sustain the international order that's expanded steadily since the end of the Cold War, and upon which our own wealth and safety depend." And before that, former President George W. Bush left a letter to his successor, saying, "Very few had the honor of knowing the responsibility you now feel. Very few know the excitement of the moment and the challenges you will face. There will be trying moments. The critics will rage. Your friends will disappoint you. But you will have an almighty God to comfort you, a family who loves you, and a country that is pulling for you, including me. No matter what comes, you will be inspired by the character and compassion of the people you now lead." But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and see you soon.